Hello, good morning. Hello, and welcome to the Freedom Speak Network, the mouthpiece for Freedom Speak International, an organization built for and by the immigrant communities in Canada to articulate and amplify issues that matter to them. Today, we are privileged to host Mr. Maiwand Rayhab, founder of the Resilience Network, here to tell us more about the network, what resilience looks like, and for whom his organization works. Welcome to the studio, Mr. Maiwand.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Before we begin, let me start by saying that in this podcast, we welcome, promote, and support free speech, but within the confines of the rule of law, respect for oneself, respect for others, and individual responsibility. So welcome to the studio. You're welcome to start by introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit more about you and the network and what exactly you're about. Welcome.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Maiwand Rayhab. I'm the founder and CEO of Resilient Societies, which is an emerging Canadian organization that supports exiled communities of activists, human rights defenders, democracy defenders, and advocates, journalists who are in exile or operating in spaces and countries where civic space is being repressed, human rights are under siege, and democracy is facing pressure. So that's kind of the overall objective of the organization that I've established. I come from Afghanistan. I live in exile in Canada, and that's why I created this organization that was really inspired by my own experience of being forced into exile from my country because of the work that I was involved in that focused on human rights, democracy, and civic space. So the organization is really to put our collective aspirations, energy, and motivations together to bring about change for democracy, for civic space, for human rights, through supporting frontline defenders of democracy, which a big number of them are now in exile, and particularly in Canada, where now I call home.
I hear you. Thank you so very much for that introduction. And I would say that what you're doing is very timely work because we are witnessing a shrinking democratic space globally. And a lot of us who are journalists, human rights defenders, and the civil rights activists literally under fire. So let me start by asking you, what does resilience actually mean to you and what does it look like?
For us, really, the whole idea of resilience is the ability to withstand the pressure, the threats, the attacks that the entire democracy ecosystem faces, and then to be able to withstand those challenges and to be able to reorganize, have the capacity, the spaces to reorganize our effort and energy and skills to reclaim not only reclaim the spaces and defend our values of pluralistic, democratic country in Canada, but also beyond that around the world, and to be able to reemerge even more stronger and more relevant to be able to promote and protect those values and those ideals that we all care about.
Thank you. Now, the Resilience Network was founded about a year ago. This exactly 1 year now. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about where you at right now in as far as your goals and objectives are concerned.
Yes, the Resilience Network is one of our flagship initiatives, which is the whole idea behind sort of establishing the Resilience Network was really to provide immediate support for people who are forced into exile in Canada so that they don't become invisible, that they don't lose hope, and that they can find a community that can support them and help them reorganize. So what's happening globally is that we are seeing more and more, unfortunately, countries and spaces kind of shrinking for activists, journalists, and political dissidents and democracy defenders. So they're pushed into exile. A lot of time, just for their safety, they have forced to get exiled. But also, it's a strategy by autocracies to push these people out of their countries. So what happens, a lot of these people, when they come to countries like Canada, there isn't an enabling, supportive environment that can help them navigate this new space, but also to continue their fight, to continue their advocacy work, to continue their civic engagement work. That space, based on our research, does not in an optimal way exist. So the whole idea behind the Resilience Network was to create that enabling environment so that these people, exiled communities, when they arrive in Canada, they have the support system that is needed to help them reorganize their life and their work. So we do three things. One, the network really provides placements and hosts institutions for the exiled communities. That could be, in the form of a fellowship, a research grant, or other kind of support, so that there's an organization, in fact, that hosts these people for an agreed amount of time. It could be 6 months, it could be 1 year or longer. So that is one of the services that we, through the Resilience Network, provide, so that these people have a home, sort of a professional institutional home that can give them the space and the time to navigate their, adapted country, for lack of a better term. So that's one. Second, we will provide these people with capacity building opportunities by providing them with workshops, trainings, networkings in the areas that they are engaged in their field of interest, media management skills, communications training, psychosocial support. So all a full package of support and assistance that can help them have the kind of a skill that's needed in this new country to be able to effectively work for the objectives or the causes that they care for. And thirdly, we would like to help them create their own coalitions, networks, so that they are part of a bigger group or a bigger community, and help them to engage in effective civic engagement and advocacy for their countries of origin, their home countries, but also to contribute effectively to the Canadian civic space, to the Canadian cultural, civic, artistic life, and become a integral contributing sort of part of the Canadian social fabric. And that's something that's missing a lot, because what we see is a lot of focus around newcomers and is around their economic contribution to the Canadian society. That's kind of the narrative. So what we are also trying to build and do through this network is also change the narrative a bit, so that there are to sort of that make people aware that there are certain groups among newcomers who come with so much to actually offer to the Canadian society. That opportunity right now is missed. And through the network, we're hoping that not only help these people continue the fight, do what they care for and they are best at for their host country, for their home country, and globally, but also I think it's in Canada's really strategic interest to have these people with all this wealth of experience and insights and perspective to help Canadian society and contribute to the Canadian society.
I hear you, and I do agree that your intentions are noble, and that there is opportunities missed when so many of us come here as exiles and trying to find our footing and finding that there is no infrastructure that is designed to support us. So let me ask you, how do you measure success 1 year later? How does successful, I mean, you set out to do something, you have your goals and objectives. 1 year down the line, how do you measure whether you have been able to achieve these goals?
Yeah, so it's a very ambitious initiative. The Resilience Network is one of our initiatives. The organization has a number of initiatives that I'm happy to talk about it. But the Resilience Network is one of our ambitious initiatives. We have spent the past few months to build the infrastructure for the initiative, sort of the systems and the processes and all of that. And we have been very fortunate to partner with Iquitas, Human Rights Education Center, a very well-known Canadian human rights focused organization based in Montreal. We are moving this initiative in a collaborative way together with our partner Iquitas. We have we have done a few things. Build the necessary infrastructure, the system processes to start this work. We have tried to raise awareness about the work through conversations, workshops, social media, so that there's sufficient awareness and understanding of not only the network itself, but the cause network is created to. We are in the pilot phase. I'm really pleased to announce just a few months ago, we had our first program participants receive a placement at Iquitas in Montreal, who is now working with them on a major human rights program. So it's good for Iquitas to have this incredible person who is in exile in Canada now working with them, helping them on one of their major initiatives, but also a great for the program participant, fellow that we call, to have that opportunity to really contribute, but also feel connected, have this sense of belonging and community that they're part of the Canada sort of human right and democracy ecosystem and are actually contributing to that. So we are still in the initial stages,
Right.
but we're moving with the right speed, I would say. If we had the resources, we could have moved probably faster. But in the meantime, we're also trying to mobilize resources and funding and support for this bold, brave Canadian initiative. And it's going to take us a while until the program is really full-fledged launched and we have our first big cohort placed in Canadian housing institution. I think we're not very far away from that. Hopefully in the coming months, we will be able to have our first cohort identified and then placed in Canadian institution. But that's kind of one thing we do to help exiled communities sort of find their footing in Canada and contribute to strengthening Canada's democracy, human rights, and civil society ecosystem. Another major thing we're doing right now is we are convening the first ever inaugural Ottawa Civic Space Summit next year in April in Ottawa. This is going to be a global summit, bringing over 500 activists, journalists, human rights defenders, representatives from governments, from society, from funders, technology firms, private sector. They will all be coming to Ottawa in April next year for a 3-day summit to defend, reclaim, and reimagine civic space, not only in Canada, but globally.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very, very timely move. And then I would want to find out who gets to participate in this kind of event that is very timely and it's urgent. If you ask me, who gets to connect with you and how do they do that?
Well, the event website is published, which includes sort of the objectives, the other logistical and program related information, speakers. I will be happy to share the link of that with you later. And the registration will open on December 1st this year, where, people from Canada, from around the world who are interested in the democracy, civic space, conversations will be welcomed and encouraged to participate and register for it. Our goal is to have over 500 participants from around the world to come to Ottawa for this inaugural summit, and this will become an annual summit. So every year, Ottawa will be hosting the Ottawa Civic Space Summit in the spring, and our goal is for Ottawa and for Canada to become this convening space for global leaders who care about democracy, civic space, and human rights. As a country, we have the capacity, and the credibility, for that matter, to be that convening space, not only in North America but globally, and to encourage innovation, co-creation, collaboration on defending democracy and on safeguarding civic space.
Yeah, that is a very important function there. But as you're aware, Mr. Maiwand, is that there are very many organizations and entities in Canada that are positioned to support the immigrant community And my question to you would be, how do you stand out? What differentiates you from all the other entities that are in Canada that are supporting the migrant communities? And the second phase of that question is, how does anyone or any entity that has something to offer partner or create synergies around achieving the same goal? Building a united front when it comes to supporting democracy.
Sure. If I can touch on the second part of your question first, is I think that to get things done and to get things done right
Mm-hmm.
and with efficiency and effectiveness,
Right.
we have no option but to collaborate.
That's right.
And we are, as an emerging Canadian organization with a domestic Canadian mandate, but also with a global programming, we believe
Mm-hmm.
in collaboration, partnership. It's at the center. And I think we have done so for in the past 2 years since the establishment of the organization. There's nothing that we have done by ourselves. We have always collaborated with like-minded Canadian organizations to make
Yes.
sure that we maximize maximize our impact. That's number one. So collaboration is key. I don't think the time calls it, the kind of sort of context we are operating under now.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no way for us to not to have success and make
Mm-hmm.
impact without collaborating in partnership. That's number one. I think it's central to our existence. It's a core principle for us to partner.
That's right.
And then we all have something that we offer, right?
Right.
So, like, how do we stand out? For example, for us, it is what we learned in the beginning when we did our initial research
Mm-hmm.
and conversation. We are focused more on empowering newcomers, particularly exiled communities, to lead, to contribute. A lot of if you see a lot of work on newcomers and immigrant support is focused on providing with support so that they can survive, that they make a living and livelihood and access to healthcare.
Yes.
Our focus is at a different level. We are trying to identify those agents of change
Mm-hmm.
and then help them create the kind of space that's needed so that they can actually lead and contribute to the Canadian democracy and civic space and human rights and sort of uh, refugee and migration space. That's kind of one thing. Second, everything we do is focused on building agency. Something that's again missing in a lot of conversation and a lot of programming for refugees, for newcomers, is that their agency is not sufficiently recognized
Right.
and harnessed and empowered. So our
Right.
goal is really to create the kind of support spaces needed so that they can reclaim their agency in Canada and be an agent of change and actually lead. And the third thing that kind of probably
Mm-hmm.
make us sort of stand out is we create the platforms, we create the space, and then we let people
Mm-hmm.
to navigate it to leverage it for the kind of work they want to do. So we are kind of an enabler of creating a conducive environment so that the target groups that we work with, which is the exiled communities,
Yes.
they leverage that space, that resources, that capacity to go about achieving their objectives. So that's kind of where we see ourselves and how we can. But as I said in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
the future, not the future, the right now, given the kind of threats we're facing,
Yes.
there's no way but to collaborate and partner to be able to not only defend, this space, but actually to make an impact.
That's wonderful. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation because as the Freedom Speak International, we are trying also to create a space where our voices collectively can be heard. Because like you correctly said, you discover or we realize that as soon as you come to Canada, our voices tend to be muffled and trodden down under because we don't have avenues where we can be heard as a collective and as individuals with very unique needs. Well, so that said, let's talk a little bit about the changing immigration policies in Canada that are going to affect and impact, for example, asylum seekers and refugees who are trying to come to Canada to escape persecution from wherever they're coming from. I don't know what you know about what is happening right now and how you can respond to that. And I'm making a reference to the Bill C2 and now Bill C12 that is proposing changes that is going to impact this particular target.
Yeah, I've been following the news about these bills that are being considered. So the focus of resilient societies and our work is primarily focused on when exiled communities are in the country.
Mhm,
So that's where our work starts. We, as an organization, we are not involved in supporting people who are at risk to come to Canada. There are other organizations that does that work, and we try to collaborate with them and coordinate and help them. But
mhm,
our mandate is really once people are already in the country to help them find their voice, claim relevance, build agency. That's where we come in. However, we one thing that we are doing, we just a couple of months ago, we published not in response to this particular bills that you're talking about, but more generally, we published a discussion paper called Civic Refuge, which really discusses how Canada as a country
mhm,
can become a better place
mhm.
for supporting exiled communities.
Right.
So that policy discussion paper is out, and we are hoping that to use that ourselves but also for other organizations to use that in engaging in constructive advocacy with the Canadian government to ensure that any new legislation that is being considered and discussed does take into consideration the importance of this particular community and the human rights defenders and democracy practitioners and exiled communities to have the kind of support they need and access to legal assistance and all of those things. These are all considered there. We are hoping to in the coming 2 months, we'll have our first sort of policy discussion around that with the stakeholders, both from government and civil society and refugee stakeholders as well.
Mhm,
So while we're not directly involved in advocacy on this particular bills or in helping people come to Canada,
right.
we do see it as an integral part of the broader ecosystem, and therefore we will play our part to help the Canadian civil society and the refugee and migration ecosystem to
Mhm,
to make sure these legislations are supportive of our objectives and that the protection
mhm.
is at the center of everything that Canada does when it comes to human rights defenders, activists, and newcomers.
Thank you for that. Now, when I'm referring to this bill, I'm particularly interested in sections of the bills that impact people that are already in Canada. More interestingly, how these proposed bills interact with the Canadian Charter of Rights. For example, bills that are proposing that people that are already here and in process of being incorporated into the asylum and refugee systems can be removed. So I'm like these are areas of concern, and my question really to you would be, what are you doing to create awareness for your members or your target group to become aware of what is changing and how that is going to impact?
A very important point. Again, as an emerging new organization,
Mhm.
at this point, we are not particularly involved in this bill and sort of the implication and all of that. But we are happy to partner
Right.
with organizations that have sort of the technical skill set who are already involved in this sort of from a legal perspective as well and all of that because this is not an area of our expertise at this point,
Okay.
but we would be happy to mobilize sort of our network and platforms that we are part of or our own platforms to make sure that not only the bill is a better bill for the communities that we work with, but also that there's sufficient information, and that's a key point to make sure that those who are the target of the bill, those who will be impacted by it, have the information and the support that they need so to ensure that that they are able to if they're impacted, but they have all the information that they need to make informed choices.
Right. Yes. That is actually the whole point. That when people are caught unawares by things like this, things that are life changing for so many, then there is an urgent need to ensure that things are not happening behind the scenes and then being sprung on communities, but people are aware, they are informed, and they're equipped with the resources to be able to respond accordingly. So you speak about publishing a paper. May I ask, where can this paper be found by people who want to read it?
It's on our website, resilience.org. Sorry, oursocieties.org, but I'm happy to share that later with you. And you can.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You will find our research, several research that we have done, and other information on our website.
Great, great. Now, my next question to you would be, what would you say to someone living in exile in Canada? Maybe 5, maybe 10 most important things for one to know to be able to not only survive in this country, but to thrive.
That's a question, a difficult one to.
Yeah.
I don't know how many I can list, but I'll say just a few.
Okay.
I think number one and the most critical is don't lose hope. Hope is so critical.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what autocracies and dictators want, is really for us, once we are forced into exile, for us to give up and lose hope. So if I say one thing, I would say don't lose hope, don't give up. That's number one. It's not going to be easy,
No.
but once you lose hope, then it's going to be even more difficult. So that is so critical. Number one. Second, try not to disappear or become invisible. So what happens a lot of time is when we come to a new country, because of all the economic pressure and being in a new country, loneliness and whatnot, we kind of try to isolate ourselves. And that kills hope. That kills our determination
Right.
to continue the fight. So that's critical.
Mm-hmm.
Be visible, have your voice, build your network, make connection. In Canada, particularly, making sure that you build your network and you're making connection, meeting people, organizations in your line of work is important. I would say own your story. Some of us that's just, you give up and say, okay, we don't want to talk about what happened. And we look at what happened to us, probably a sign of weakness. But I think it's important to, it's our story, our struggle,
Mm-hmm.
is part of who we are, and its power. It is our power, and we need to make sure that we own our story and we're able to tell it
That's right.
to inspire
Mm-hmm.
inspire people, others, to raise awareness. So that's I think very. I would say learn the system. We come from different countries, different backgrounds,
Right.
and sometimes in our countries that we come from, things move very fast. For example, it's easier to arrange meetings with somebody. It's easier to get things done
Right.
because we live in that country and the system is different. Canada is not the same. It's a new country. It has its own systems, own culture, its own way that people work. It's
That's right.
important to learn it, not let it shrink you, and don't
Mm-hmm.
get frustrated. Learn it, and make sure that find ways that we can effectively navigate it. Other point I would say is, build relationship, as I said before, and
Mm-hmm.
also invest in those relationships. Create a community or become part of a community. It's good for our sort of psychological, mental well-being,
That's right.
which is important, very critical and important in this fight.
Right.
But also to, for our professional objectives as well. And then if I can go back to the first one, I think when
Mm-hmm.
I say about hope, this
Right.
is critical for me. It's not hope just because we want to be optimistic or it's good for our well-being as a person, as our mental well-being.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a strategy as well. It is,
Mm-hmm.
we should look at hope as a strategy to make sure let those who are pushing for more authoritarian rules and in
Mm-hmm.
our home countries, all of them, that, you know what, we're not giving up. that we will continue the fight. Exile is where, it's a relocation
Right.
of physical relocation, mental and all of that, but the actual struggle continues.
I hear you. Now, when you talk about hope and telling stories, a question comes to mind. And this is a question about safety and security, because a lot of us who are in exile are actually running away from something. And sometimes there's a sense that when you are on the run, the idea is to hide. Don't come out, don't be public, don't let people know what you're going through, because if they do, then there's a threat direct to you that those that want to do you harm can actually harm you while you are here. So, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's a very genuine, valid concern. In our work, it's called transnational repression,
Right.
where people who are in exile are continue to be targeted by
Yeah.
their home countries. And Canada, unfortunately, is a target country in that sense, because a lot of exiled, we are home to a large number of exiled communities from around the world. And naturally, a lot of these people are targets or victims of transnational repression, which means their host country, their home countries, reaching beyond their borders to attack these people, to silence them, to help, to push them to give up. So I think safety should come first, but it's a different level. So number one, first thing, with activism, there's a certain level of risk that comes with it. And we are activists and human rights defenders, democracy defenders. We kind of know that this work comes with a certain level of risk. But we need to make sure that we are prepared and we have the necessary tools and support that we need to minimize the risk. And if it is, if we can't do, if there's people from certain countries that can't do anything at all, so that's why we're creating networks, and so that their voice can be still loud and effective, like organizations like ours can create that kind of platforms to advocate on behalf of certain individuals or groups. But in the meantime, I think we need to also make sure that we have all the safety measures in place, from a digital hygiene to making sure that we have all the sort of the legal and security and policing support that's required,
Yes.
Canada, for example, so that these people are protected against transnational repression. It's a it's a it's a case by case sort of decision that every individual has to make to sort of understand their level of risk appetite, but also to really know what are the kind of risks that they are facing, and to make an informed choice about being loud or not being loud, but making sure that their voices uh, are sort of amplified by others and platforms that exist for this particular purpose. Yeah, to short answer to the question,
Yes.
for some it will be
Yeah.
comes with the risk. And I think we should be very prudent and careful and make sure that, we're not putting nobody's life is put at risk. But when it's safe, when it is possible to be loud, to tell the story, I think we should all tell it.
I hear you. I hear you, and I agree with you completely. But you speak about safeguards on a personal level, things that a person in exile should do for themselves to make sure that they are staying safe. But what about safeguards that exist on a state or a country level? What are, for example, Canada's obligations in as far as protecting those of us who are running away from persecution? And what would an ideal space look like?
So, an ideal space when it comes to safety of exiled community is that, they are kind of immune or inoculated against the kind of transnational repression operations that they are targeted by. Their target of, and that includes making sure that, well, at the individual level we have all the skill sets and the tools that we need, but also at a policy level, as an institutional level, we need to make sure that the laws, the policies of the government, the processes within the public safety, for example, other sort of safety-related organizations. There, at the diplomatic level, that there's safe and enabling support that exists there that sort of prevent
Mhm.
uh, uh, transnational repression attacks that would target Canadian activists living inside in Canada. That's number one. I think prevention, deterrence prevention is number one. Second, we need to make sure that there are there's a sufficient level of information out there that so that target groups, exiled communities, know not only how to protect themselves at an individual level, but also who to reach out to when they are they fear that they may be a target of transnational repression operations, or that they unfortunately actually get targeted. That they know what to do, who to reach out to in the Canadian uh, government system, so that help can be extended in an effective and uh, efficient manner. Then also it's about other things like, for example, how do we make sure that because targets are not
Mhm.
necessarily only physical security, safety. It's also about, for
Yes,
example, disinformation
that's right.
and how and sort of how do we make sure that people are not a target of disinformation operations by some
Mhm.
countries, and their privacy and their image in the society and all of that are critical. So the government, while it has done something in the past few years, needs to do much more to
Mhm.
ensure that there's an enabling environment where all relevant government institutions, from
Mhm.
public safety to global affairs to Heritage Canada and other institutions, have a coordinated approach to making sure that activists in exile are not attacked by autocratic forces. One suggestion that we had in our paper is if there's a joint task force
Mhm.
that includes members of all different government entities, but also that target communities themselves, the exiled communities, to be actually
Mhm.
at the decision-making tables when it comes to sort of drafting policies and procedures that are meant to ensure their and protect their safety. And then on top of all of this, I suggest it's important that we build
Mhm.
resilience to these types of threats and attacks, also within the community themselves, and that comes with having access to information,
Yeah.
digital safety security trainings, how making sure they have toolkits on how to safely use social media and privacy. All of these, and mental support, community support. All of them can be part of a holistic package that can help build resilience
Mhm.
to transnational repression operations.
Thank you. Now, to the point about being present at the decision making table, you recognize, and I think you and I both know that the systemic biases that exist that exclude certain groups of people from sitting at that particular table where decisions are being made. I don't know what you might say about that and add to that your parting shot.
So there's two sides to this.
Yeah.
I think there's a need for institutions in Canada
Hmm.
to genuinely and in a meaningful way become even more inclusive.
Right.
Uh, and when it comes in terms of processes, procedures, and consultations and decision making processes, and make sure that everything that's done
Hmm.
centers
Hmm.
the agency and voice of the exiled communities. That is number one. So, and then second, I think we as the exiled community as well need to become more organized and to demand and advocate for us to be included, not only included in the process, but actually lead some of these conversations in the country. And that's sort of the main philosophy behind the work of resilient society, is that we a genuine inclusion is not about that you're included in a consultation. It's actually that you are driving, leading the conversation and the discussion. And
Right.
that also means that we need to become more creative ourselves,
Hmm.
take the initiative, don't give up and get frustrated, don't lose hope, as I said in the beginning, and
Right.
and also connect with each other. One thing that I think we need to do more is connect with each other, learn from each other's story, because each of our stories is so different,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of power in us coming together, learning from each other, finding out what are our issues, and then
Mhm.
collectively
Mhm.
advocate for those. And all of this can be done constructively. I think one thing in my years of advocacy work I've experienced is you don't always have to be adversarial. You can a lot of time achieve things
Yeah.
when you're constructive, when
Right.
you engage early, when you offer solutions, and when you are relevant. You're strong in the sense that you're not one organization or one person. You're
Right.
actually a community of organizations and individuals that are
Mhm.
advocating for a certain cause.
I hear that. And I really do appreciate what you just said, the last bit about not being adversarial and instead being constructive. But we come from a culture that we have been socialized to be adversarial because in many settings, it is like unless you are adversarial and very noisy and disruptive, nobody is listening. So how do we navigate a changing environment that demands that instead of being adversarial, then we must be constructive and we must be open to discussion, contribution in a different, in a civil environment?
Well, there might be time that you have to be loud, and,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that we always have to, conform with the, with
Stereotypes.
norms,
Yeah.
and because there are times that we can be loud, and there are times that we must be loud
Yes.
and vocal and bold. But then a lot of time we need to, because there's so much power in collaboration
Right.
than in sort of confrontation.
Hmm.
And I think if, particularly in Canada, despite its a lot of shortfalls, when we are an imperfect country
Right.
in many ways,
Right.
but I do see, and we're used to a certain way of working.
Hmm.
So I think we need to do two things. One is that we need to make sure we learn how work is done here,
Right.
and then navigate it in that way, so that we are not necessarily disrupting the whole thing, and we are finding a way and navigating in an effective way and engaging
Hmm.
constructively.
Hmm.
And we need to have some patience as well, because things, as you and I have learned, doesn't
Right.
move as fast with the kind of speed that is required. In the meantime, I think the Canadian space
Hmm.
does benefit from a bit of disruption too.
That's
So,
right.
and there's no harm in times to also come with brave, bold ideas that
Right.
can be disruptive, because that's how change happens, right?
That's right.
So yeah, it's to strike a right balance when it's right to be super constructive,
Hmm.
collaborative, and and you have time to do that and engage with stakeholders and the
Right.
ecosystem. But then there are times that you see certain things is not working, and that requires a disruption, an overhaul of the
Hmm.
whole thing to make it more effective and efficient, particularly now, given the kind of threats we're facing in Canada. So I think we can be disruptive as well at times.
I hear you very loudly and very clearly. So, as we come to the end of this discussion, what is it that you'd like to say as your parting shot, your last word?
I think Canada has the potential to
Hmm.
become a leader in providing what I call civic refuge, like creating an enabling, supportive environment that protects uh, at risk human rights defenders, journalists, political dissidents from the time that they reach out to a Canadian embassy or a Canadian institution, to that time to the actual that they get into Canada, and then they uh, sort of start their life here and their work here, can become that country that sort of probably the a first country in the world that creates a whole of society support system, so that these people can actually not only contribute to their home countries where they've come from, but also to contribute effectively to the Canadian civil, political, and cultural, and artistic, and all those spaces. The current time, the kind of threats we are facing, the kind of threats democracy and is facing globally, it calls for Canada to become that global leader, not only in Canada but even beyond our borders.
You're right.
It's Canada's choice now to rise to the occasion and assume that leadership role by changing things domestically in Canada, but also championing these causes globally, or be a bystander and let others claim agency and lead.
I hear you. Yeah, speaking about our home countries, I am inclined to ask the final question about the push factors that are causing some of us to flee our own countries. And I'm beginning to wonder with what is happening down south in America, where does Canada stand in as far as addressing those push factors that are pushing people from their home countries because of instability, political or otherwise?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I can't talk on behalf of the Canadian,
Yeah, you're right.
but my thinking is that this moment
Hmm.
around North America, but also around the world, what we're seeing is more and more the space for democracy, for human rights, for civil society is closing. It's a trend that we are seeing. I'm hopeful that
Hmm.
we can reverse it, but to be able to reverse that trend,
Hmm.
it's an opportunity for Canada to become bold and brave
Hmm.
in making sure that first we kind of inoculate the Canadian space so that our own democracy, our
Yes.
own social and cultural space
Hmm.
is to the extent possible protected
Right.
against these waves of authoritarianism and
Hmm.
polarization and populism and whatnot. That's number one priority.
Right.
Second, making sure that we also play a global role in defending democracy, in making sure that we can turn the tides of repression and autocracy and start the new waves of democracy. That I think Canada can not only contribute but actually lead that global effort as well. And it's important because
Hmm.
what happens inside the country is going to be affected by what happens globally, and we are seeing that every day in the trade
Hmm. That's right.
war and whatnot. So
Yes.
we cannot isolate
Hmm.
domestic global.
Hmm.
It's making sure that we prioritize and also we are smart in how we go about it.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for making the time, Mr. Mawand. And that is where we leave it. Thank you for listening. If you're tuned into this podcast and if you like our content, please find us on Spotify or on YouTube. It's bye for now until we meet again. My name is Wanja Gathu. I'll be your host.
Thanks,
Goodbye for
man.
now.
Nice
Goodbye
talk.
for now. Nice
Bye.
talking to you. It's been wonderful. Thank you. Bye for now.